Good afternoon and welcome to another webcast from the ATD Cascadia chapter. My name is DJ Netz. I'm the president of the ATD Cascadia chapter, and today we're having a session on revolutionizing training programs with live video and focusing on the A-dec story. And so today we have Fritz Brumder, the CEO and founder of Brandlive. They're our chapter sponsor this year. And it's an exciting web-based video platform that we've all been able to experience. And we also have Mariah Kraner.
Hi.
She's the global training manager from A-dec, and they're a prominent supplier of dental instrumentation and equipment. So we want to encourage your questions today. You've got a chat feature to contribute questions and observations. And to really incentivize that, we're offering a challenge. The person who has the most interesting question today, we're going to vote on that, and you'll be able to receive a $50 Amazon gift card for the most interesting question. So reflect on what you're listening to and see if you can challenge us to give us a great question, and we can explore some best practices with web-based video. So to start,
there's already some competition because there were some good questions that
right.
people asked before the event even started. So
we're very pleased.
You're not without your peers in competition here today.
Yeah. So to start off our session, I want to turn it over to Mariah and have you describe who are the different roles that you have to reach and the geographies that you have to reach. How distributed is your workforce, and how is web-based video contributing to that solution?
Sure. Well, we are a global manufacturer, and we do most of our manufacturing in Newburgh, Oregon, but we have facilities across the globe. So we also have a distribution center in the UK, in Australia, and in China. And then we have we sell through distribution. So much like when you go to a car dealership to buy a car, you're not going to the Ford manufacturer, correct? So we work with all of our distributors and showrooms to kind of equip throughout the globe. And with that, we have to train each of those dealers and dealer networks to sell our equipment and to understand our brand value, our proposition, and also understand our culture. And we're a family-owned company, understand really what makes us different and unique, and how we manufacture everything in the U.S. and how that makes our quality standards different. So to enable us to do that, we have to really connect with folks. I mean, it doesn't really do it justice to have PowerPoints and things that folks can go through, especially when we've got multiple languages. I mean, we work across the whole globe. Being able to have the ability to reach out and talk to our partners, talk to our distributors, and our own territory managers. So we have territory managers in every region that represent our brand, and they partner with our distribution partners. So that enables us to kind of train at many different levels. We train at our headquarters level on different topics, even some things on compliance or just even overall quality, ways that we can be better. We've used it for leadership, for communication standards, but also for product launches and how we can get more information out to our customers in a timely manner, even prior to launch, so that they can be ready on the day of order acceptance to be out talking about the features and benefits.
Cool.
I have a question, actually. I'm really curious. Do you feel like that the challenge of all of that product and all the different audiences, is that getting harder or getting easier as the business grows? It's
definitely getting harder. So not only is it getting harder from the sense that we have more people to reach, and just in general, I won't go into too much detail, but the way that distribution has opened, there used to be kind of key partners that aligned with the dealer network, and like if certain dealers represented certain products, and now it's pretty much a wide open market. So we used to work with one major dealer. We have multiple now that we work with across the globe. And also internationally, just the way that things, even currency, helping our dealers understand currency relief programs or things that we might be able to help as the price of the dollar gets strengthened. We're kind of unique in a lot of the dental industry where our products are manufactured in the U.S., so it actually makes our products more expensive globally to purchase. Yes. As we've expanded and trying to grow more globally, it's actually become much more difficult.
Yeah, and I'd be curious from the audience, I would guess that it's the same. We hear that a lot, and it's kind of counterintuitive, right? You think globalization and software and automating business processes and all this great stuff that we have would be making our lives easier and easier. But I think the nature of personalization and market, products specific to individual markets is another factor that's like, well, we make this, but we actually make it a little bit different for everybody in Europe. And so dealing with all those little intricate details, I think, is a challenge for any person that's training and trying to bring products into the market and educate an audience.
Yeah. Even localizing marketing material and then getting that in the hands of our team. We often have our brochures available in 14, 15 languages and trying to get all of that content out. And it is different. It's just the way that it's laid out and the wording is different depending on where they're being distributed.
So can you tell us more about the sense of scope
Sure.
of how you're integrating video into your different modalities, in-person, classroom, through the LMS, and also across product categories?
Sure. So we, like many companies, have used face-to-face training as our primary way of training for, we started doing kind of our dealer sales training face-to-face, which was a 4-day class out in Newburgh about 30-something years ago. We were bringing folks in. Everyone had to fly into Newburgh. And we still do that class, and it'll probably be our flagship class because getting the culture, the tour, seeing the manufacturing piece is something we want folks to do. But what we've noticed over really the last 3 or 4 years is people aren't really willing to take 4 days, well, really it's 6 days because a travel day on either end, to be out of their territories always, and especially early on in their career. Organizations aren't necessarily willing to make the commitment to have someone out and pay the expenses for them to come. So we've noticed that we have to think differently. So we've really looked at training kind of at 3 different levels. How we can train remotely by either video or e-learning content on an LMS, and how we can train in the field. So we actually go to them sometimes for training, and then how we also still have face-to-face. So the way that we've really used Brandlive and live video is for a couple different ways. One, it's the engagement and relationship building in the forefront. So even though we might be doing something on a product launch, being able to see us and interact with us, ask questions, and be able to see that at the launch level and allows us to engage whether or not they're able to make it out and see or not. We also have used live video in our actual face-to-face trainings and started getting people more used to that. One way that we've used it is oftentimes our distribution partners, their leadership team isn't necessarily able to come to Newburgh either, but they want to show their support for the training and for our partnership. So they'll do some sort of a interactive question and answer or welcome or broadcast from our headquarters when we're doing training face-to-face. And we also, and as you can see from the slide, we actually have had more, so we started using this only in North America and from our headquarters in Newburgh because, we just wanted to test it out and get people used to the production. But over the course of the last year, we've had folks using it and starting programs and actually having content in other areas. So we had a program in Europe, and we've had programs in China, and folks are starting to now take the content and actually use the live video to go out to their networks. So where it's kind of that, making a larger distribution network of the training content, it's almost train the trainer, if you will, in the video world.
Yeah, that was the first thing that came to my mind too, is you train the trainer, enable the market for them to utilize this new technology. I think will be really powerful over a longer period of time.
Yeah.
That's great.
Follow up on that. So you've seen some viral adoption of this. That's terrific.
Yeah, and I would say even across, so I am obviously in the global training department, which is really responsible for our channel development training, so our territory managers and our product training. But we also have been using this and have seen wider adoption across the organization. Like I mentioned, our quality team has been using this for quality training and compliance. We've had training on from how to utilize new software that we've used for ordering, and our customer service department has utilized it to be able to get out to a wider audience. And then we also have quarterly management meetings, but we have managers who are across the globe, and they didn't ever have a way to participate prior to having Brandlive, and now we have our those kind of forums and open communication and really engage. Even our leaders at our other distribution sites and across the globe are able to now participate in our meetings. So it definitely within our sales team and the training team has had a broader adoption, but I would say across the organization has really just kind of taken off.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's good. So you've got a specific example of a certain lever that you wanted to describe and share with us.
Sure, yeah. So if we, as you can see on the slide, we have Sam Zemke, who is one of our product managers. And what we were doing is really, with the product, it was a lever foot control. So it just really quickly, to give you some context, in order to kind of operate the hand pieces on the dental equipment, the dentist always just kind of had to step. There's kind of a disc and step on the disc to make it work. And we created a new product where the disc sits on the floor, but there's a little lever that they can just move their foot from side to side and make either the hand piece go forward or go backwards, which actually was really helpful for advanced procedures and things. And you could feel that how much pressure you were putting on by moving your foot from side to side better than pressing down. Well, you think, okay, so as I'm explaining this, right, there's a lot of interaction that's kind of that we want everybody, you know, we launched this product internationally first. What we wanted to be able to really do is have them experience, and you can see kind of from the example there with Sam, we had the chairs, we had the hand pieces, we had the foot controls there, and we were showing the difference between the prior product and the new product, and allowing people to really ask questions, see how it worked, demonstrate it. We could zoom in and focus on a specific part of the product, and it allowed for that real-time question and answer and interaction, because what, you know, we could have done a pre-recorded video and launched it to kind of show something like YouTube, right, how to do something. But I know myself, even, how often are you on YouTube and you're pausing it and rewinding it and you're going forward and you're trying to find that exact spot. And with having the trainer there giving you that live video, you can stop them as a participant and say, hey, can you just revisit that piece? I wasn't quite sure what you meant on how to work, you know, that exact lever. Can you show me again how to do the, you know, reverse? And it allows more interaction.
So I notice you've got time markers for key event points. How do you arrive at that? Does somebody come in after the recording?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So there's a few different pieces of that, and I'm not the main production expert, so I'm sure Fritz is going to have more to say, but I do know a bit about kind of the getting the program, you know, from a training design standpoint. So we know ahead of time what we want to train on, and it's just like any other program. We have our outcomes and how we're going to, you know, the outline and how we'll go through the program and how we'll assess the learning. But then we have areas where we really want to make sure that those are kind of key topics, or we know they're hot button things. So we will mark those so they can go back to that specific moment and not watch the whole hour webcast again. The other piece is we will preload, and sometimes even after the fact, to load things in specific documents. So maybe for this, it's the brochure and it's information on kind of how to order, or installation guides, or things that they might want to download to be able to actually look and use. And one of the things that I find really fascinating, kind of having been in the training industry long enough to have not had live video even available, is that we see that people really do engage with the content afterwards. So over 50% of our participants will they'll log on, they'll watch the whole live broadcast, but 50% of them will come back more than once and re-log in and either watch a segment where it was timed, and then 33 downloads per person per event. So we're finding that people will come back, and that's kind of their source. Even though we have things on our website or other places, they're going back to that event where they remember learning it and downloading the brochure. Or
that too.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
So Fritz, do you have other examples?
I do, yeah, but I noticed that there's a really good question that relates directly to the example you described. It's from Melissa in Montreal, and she says, what do you consider the main advantage trainers would have in using a live tool compared to a traditional or classic webinar type tool where you can integrate a webcam type video solution and a PowerPoint? And I think it all really starts back to how well are you telling stories, or how impactful and important are the people in telling those stories? So if the people and the product story that the people have, or the trainer's ability to educate the audience is important, that's a good reason to use live video over a traditional webinar type tool, because most of the time you're going to end up with slides and voice. And if you have just slides and voice, you're not going to get kind of the personality and the culture behind the products and the trainer's energy. So by putting that on live video, you're going to get a little bit of extra added value. In addition, the product designer who created this new foot lever that has the intricacy of left, right, and does it stay up and down too? Or so the left and right controls, by actually showing that in person by using video, you get a lot more real life examples and real life visibility to what it actually looks like. Plus you're in the space and you're in the environment. So I think that there's some real advantages to focusing the training more on video, and PowerPoint just wouldn't do that justice. If you try to explain the new foot lever in PowerPoint, it just, you'd lose something, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and the cadence becomes somewhat choppy. I've done it either way, and really at being the trainer who's doing something from more of a webinar versus a live video, you do tend to rely heavily on your slides and then trying to understand when you're going back and forth. You know, with our live video, and as you'll see even just from the demonstration today, it's not slide heavy. It's really focused on interaction between the presenters and a product or what they're delivering versus being a voice that's dictating what you're seeing on a screen.
Yes, exactly. Well, I'll go through a few more examples. I'll try and hit, Darren asked about best practices. It looks we have a question on tools and file formats. We're actually going to get to that. We have some equipment. So we're going to start talking about specifics on what you need in order to spin up a live video program. But just to get the ideas and the inspiration going a little bit more, I'll share here on my screen. And technically what you're seeing happen here is we can incorporate slides that are built into the broadcast, or we could have a laptop in view, and we can have that laptop be the camera shot. And so as I'm clicking through my slides, we can go through those. So this first example that we have up here is Cabela's. Cabela's does retail training almost every single day with their vendors. They have over 450 vendors that need to communicate the education on the products that are sold at Cabela's stores, and there's about, I may get this number wrong, but I want to say it's 3,500 retail sales associates that they need to train and educate at all these stores. And so by putting people in the field or having an in-person thing, it's just not going to work. But here you can see that the people who are doing the presentation, it's in much more of a real-life environment. They can actually have the tents set up. And that experience is also heavily mobile-based too. So the associates on the floor, if you walk into any Cabela's store, the handheld device that they have in their pocket has a live video application for Brandlive on it, and they can pull up and search for and then watch both live and recorded sessions. This next example is from a company called Sanmar. If you've worn any branded promotional products, it comes from Sanmar. They own Port Authority. They own the licensing rights for all Nike branded, promotional branded product, OGO branded product. They are a major, major player in that market. Just like if you ever go to the dentist, you can say, hey, is this an A-dec chair? You'll know when you sit in it. It's an A-dec chair, by the way. But A-dec supplies probably market share.
It's about 60% in the domestically, but about 85% in schools. So if dental students have learned on an A-dec chair,
So next time you go to the dentist, you can have an inside scoop that you're using an A-dec chair. You know about A-dec. So Sanmar, they have a training need with their sales associate or sales reps that are in the field. Just like you said, you have multiple channel sales reps, and one of the things that they have described is keeping people in the field, having an extra week of selling time where they can actually go visit their accounts versus getting the training back in person. They still do that. They do that once a year, but the product life cycles are changing fast enough. 3 times throughout the year they're doing live training sessions where they can keep the people in the field, they get the information, they have the samples, and they can still hit the field. And they do it really fun too. They have sort of a sketch comedy and a fun and funny aspect to it. Next, a company that we all know, eBay. eBay is successful when their sellers are successful. So there's a whole training team that is responsible for making sure that the best sellers on eBay understand what all the software selling tools are. Just like you said, sometimes A-dec is using Brandlive for physical product training, and sometimes it's software and compliance and utilizing things that are in your computer. And eBay runs Brandlive events each time that they're updating the seller platform, which might have to do with their return shipping software or their holiday promotion software. And the more that they can get all of their sellers up to speed on the features and benefits of their software, the more stuff they're going to sell, the more commission eBay is going to make. It's 1.5% or whatever on total sales.
So Fritz, we've got a question here from Greg from Wilco, and he's asking, curious if anyone is doing live video computer process training. They're working on moving from cashier training from an in-person thing to a live person,
Yeah.
and looking for a tool that allow participants to see the presenter's screen and for the presenter to see each of the participants' screen at the same time.
So this is a broadcast format which would give you the ability to show your screen as the presenter and the host.
Yeah.
But for the audience to see their screen, I don't know of a tool that you can do that simultaneous, see everybody's screen simultaneously, but there's definitely remote desktop and screen share tools that I would look predominantly in like the help desk type of category. There's a few tools that software help desk companies or software help desk departments use in order to see their audience's screen. But usually that's happening in a one-to-one environment. But this eBay example, that's exactly what they're doing. This guy on the screen, his name is Griff. His claim to fame, he's probably the only millionaire that has made his money selling Hawaiian shirts on eBay. He was the number 3 employee at eBay. He started selling Hawaiian shirts that he bought at thrift stores and stuff like that. And he has sold millions of them on eBay. Yeah. And so he became kind of this eBay evangelist and eBay power seller. So again, his personality resonates very well with the eBay audience. So by putting him on live video, they're getting that extra kind of I want to be like Griff feeling.
Yeah. Well, we also had an example of that, actually. We last year launched a new ERP implementation. So everyone from our dealers to our territory managers and even internal in our customer service had to learn a new computer system and understand how to use a configurator and build the products and pick the colors and what works and what doesn't work. And we use Brandlive to train across the spectrum internally with our customer service reps, but also all of our field-based personnel. And I mean, that was, just one dealer is over 3,000 folks. And then as you start multiplying that, internationally, it really helped us reach everyone. And Fritz actually made a really good point too about getting people out for a week. When we're working with our sales folks, they're 100% commission. So not only are they not making money for the company, if they're not out selling, they're not making money that week. So if you think about how committed you are to coming to a training event when you know you will not be paid for it, you will make no income that week. It's like a non-unpaid vacation week. So that, really looking at other ways to really be, to make sure we can get content out more frequent than a yearly sales meeting, but be able to respect the fact that their time is money.
Yes, that's a real win-win.
Yeah.
Give them the information, you enable them, you empower them, and then they can sell more.
Yep.
That's great.
Let's have one more follow-up to reinforce this point. So Patrice is writing, she wanted to know about breakout sessions and again, screen sharing. So can
scroll?
Thank you. All right. So Patrice is asking, would like to hear more about around software training. Can you see the screens of the attendees? And what about breakout rooms?
Yes. Good questions. So we touched a little bit on software training, both with the eBay example and A-dec. Another one, a large footwear company in Oregon, you can probably guess which one, launched a new expense software called Concur. Concur is made by SAP and, of course, thousands of employees, and how do you launch a software like that? And they built a Brandlive training program to launch Concur, and they actually won an award from SAP for that training program rollout. They did it faster and more cost-effective and better results than anybody else. So that was kind of a cool anecdote on an unintended use of software. So it works well for software, but the same, I have to answer this the same way I did the last question, which is I still don't know of a tool where you can see everybody's screen all at the same time. You can do that in one-to-one, and you can do that mostly with webinar-based tools. So like we've talked about, unfortunately, there's not one arrow in the quiver that you need. You need in-person training still. While we want these guys to stay in the field and sell as much as possible, we also need them to feel connected to the organization. You're still going to do in-person training. The classroom style is still going to be your flagship. But how do we supplement that, and how do we deal with the complexity of go-to-market and the complexity of different training?
Also maybe the nature of designing the instructional experience. So maybe the live web video is the demonstration, and we have a great recording. And then the follow-up practice activities can be done through some other event like Adobe Connect or Skype for Business or whatever the tool is.
For one-to-one, a good way to think about this is if your audience size is under 20, you might want to just look at using a webinar type tool. And internally we use Zoom. I think somebody else commented on that as well. It's a video first solution which fits perfectly with our company and culture. It allows for screen sharing, and you can see one person, the other person's screen at one time. And I believe it does have a breakout room feature. I've used it maybe one time. If your audience is over 25, that's where live video and broadcast video really starts to have a bigger impact.
Makes sense.
So.
Makes sense. Let's transition and start talking about how does this work? How would I ever get started, and what do I need to? What steps do I need to prepare to launch something like this?
Yeah. So on my screen, I'm going to share not my email, but I will share a quick view. This will be a 1,000-foot tutorial of the Brandlive software platform and how it works to create events and manage your content. So right now I'm sharing our marketing dashboard. So we've run 76 events inside this account. We have 2 of them upcoming. We've reached about 10,000 unique individuals. Some of our events require registration, some of them do not. So about 2,400 unique email addresses we've captured. And we've generated over 3,000 live video viewers and 5,000 records. So that kind of gives you an example. We tend to skew a little bit more live audience, but we do have people coming back and watching. We see some accounts that are the flip-flop of that, right? So this is your dashboard where you can kind of see how things are working. I'm going to create a new event called ATD. Once I start creating a new event, you have a template of the page that you're looking at today in the A-dec example that you saw. You have the video in the upper left-hand corner. You have the comment feature on the right-hand side. And then below the video is a very versatile section where you can either add your own HTML, you can add products that you're talking about in different tabs, and that's quite versatile too. You can include agendas and download features in there. And you can have quizzing and polling as well, so the audience can submit their feedback. You can take that more in aggregate and then display that for the audience to see.
So let's have a follow-up here on the quiz. Where do the scores go?
Yeah, in the results and metrics, which I'll pull up in just a second, you'll see the quiz results, and you can either look at them in aggregate or you can look at the individual details. We also use the quiz feature for certification and training. So if you build a course or a lesson in Brandlive and you have the audience go through it, you can set it so that the passing the course is either watching the video or passing the quiz. Once you pass the quiz, then you get certification, and that gets tracked in our courses module, which you could think of as this kind of a mini learning management system. Some of our customers use that to build learning management just in Brandlive. Some of them have learning management outside of Brandlive, and they're working to connect that, and this is a project we're working on with A-dec, to connect Brandlive to their learning management system, so the two things, you have one profile that talks back and forth between the two tools.
That's awesome. That kind of addresses a question that did come in from Darren. Is can Brandlive be used as a separate LMS, or can it integrate with an existing one?
I must have been thinking about your question ahead of time, Darren, because that is the answer, both. Yeah, we see customers that want to get into learning management with Brandlive, and then we see some customers that have a legacy learning management system and they want to incorporate live video into that.
Great. One more follow-up on the quiz.
Yeah.
Can you export the results in the scores?
Yep. Yeah, so again, I'll pull up in just a minute one of the activity and analytics pages, and that will show you those quiz results. Yeah. Any other good questions? There looks like Greg has a question from Forest Grove.
And he's asking, there are many platforms available to create videos, Camtasia, YouTube, and channels to stand them up and deliver them. What's our different point of view on these different platforms? In terms of Camtasia, it's great for
again,
capturing.
Unfortunately, there's no one arrow that you can put in the training bucket and say, this is the tool that we use all the time. I think you want to look at maybe less of the tools and more of the format. You might be a better expert in this, but that might be my suggestion.
Yeah, and I was going to say, we use multiple tools for different things. So Brandlive isn't a one-size-fits tool. We find that it works for a lot of the things that we're trying to do, but just like Fritz mentioned, integrating into our LMS, really think about this as kind of at a program level. You might have multiple activities, and viewing that live video and participating in that event might be part of an overall product launch. Or there's other things. There may be other resource material. There may be a face-to-face class that's included. So it's kind of a piece of it. The one piece that I would mention, and it has been a challenge for us, we've looked at multiple different software or ways to kind of get out to our audiences before we found Brandlive. And one of the things that's really helpful for us, like I mentioned, we have multiple channels. And in order to be able to keep things secure and have them so that they're only viewable by different audiences, we have to use a tool like Brandlive where we can say, if we just want our internal folks to have a quality update, we can do that. If we want to have a training that's branded for one of our dealers, we can have a branded training where only they log in and see their downloads. YouTube or other tools, you can record things, you can put it behind another LMS and save it, but that live ability to manage audiences is very tough.
Yep.
Yeah. Target the videos to role-based considerations.
Exactly.
Excellent.
So I see we have another question, but I want to get into the hardware and production side of things. So I'll start with that, and feel free to chime in if the question makes sense. So we've already shown the admin console, and that's where, as Mariah just mentioned, you can customize the look and feel of the page, and basically you're building a micro website, but it's a really simple tool to use. So you're kind of getting a content manager, and you don't have to go to IT to say, hey, embed this YouTube video in this page for me, and that becomes my training content. So once you've built your page and once you have your content ready, now it's time to produce the video. We do offer both live and recorded content upload. The vast majority of our events, of course, are live first, but we do offer an option to record and upload. So today we're using a camera like this. This is a really nice professional level camera, really high quality, gives you lots of control over exposure and focus and zooming, etc. And this is connected to a computer that is running the Brandlive production studio. And you can switch back and forth between the sources. We have Mike here, who's in our little studio environment. Mike can choose whether he's showing, we have two cameras set up, a tight camera shot and a wide camera shot. And then we also have the slides. So as we're talking, Mike can pick which ones he wants to show.
And that's HD.
This is HDMI. Yep, this is high definition camera. There's a couple different ways to do that, but this device is called a Blackmagic mini recorder. And you take the HDMI feed, you plug it into this, and then this goes into your computer if you're using a Mac.
So say that one more time. Blackmagic
mini recorder.
All right.
And we can put this in the notes. We also have a moderator who's also named DJ. And DJ from Brandlive can put in a Blackmagic mini recorder.
Terrific.
And so that converts HDMI to SDI. That's for Mac-based production. If you're using PC, it's slightly different. If you would like to know the answer to that, just send us an email. You can email me directly at fritz@yourbrandlive.com, and we can get back to you on how to do that. Okay, so that's how you do video, and you can use a one camera setup or two camera setup. The mics that we're using are Sennheiser microphones. They're wireless microphones, so each one of us have a little lapel mic on. You can also use a shotgun mic if you want to not have the lapel mics. It's a little bit cheaper way to go, but these are are simple to use and very reliable, which is important for audio.
Yes.
Audio is, if you're going to invest in one thing, invest in audio. These are a little bit more expensive. They're about $600 each, but they're well worth it, and they are tried and true and last a long time. So I've started on the high end of production. So camera on tripod, microphones, lapel mics, and then somebody switching all of that. Another option is to utilize a basic webcam. This is from Logitech. We're actually exploring a more detailed partnership program with Logitech, but you can find them really anywhere. You can find them at your classic office store or Best Buy, or online at logitech.com. And these are USB-based webcams, so it just gives you a nicer webcam from what's built into your computer. But you can run a production similar to this just using a webcam. And some people like that. It's fast and very versatile.
Sure. The investment in that, under $200?
This is under $200, yes.
Terrific.
Yep.
So another question came in. Any other recommendations on equipment or room setup?
Yeah.
We've got these amazing lights here and other affordances in a studio environment, but...
Yeah, so as I'm working my way down in production, then I'll come back up. I basically have a video production studio in my pocket with this device, Android or iOS. You can broadcast live video just from your built-in camera and built-in microphone. And there's a lot of tools out there that already exist to do that, both with Brandlive and with other live video platforms. Brandlive is developing a live video broadcasting tool within our own app. So you'll be able to create and manage the event and broadcast to the event very quickly and easily just within the app. And for a long time, I felt like that wasn't really going to get the level of production quality, but I'm constantly amazed as we've been experimenting with it and putting it into real environment situations, the level of versatility that you can get, and even the first person walking around and walking closer to the foot pedal and talking to the dentist and getting more of like the behind the scenes type of feeling is actually really elevates the level of training experience. It may not be the traditional way we think about training where it's like, okay, here's the lesson that I want to put somebody through. It's more about the experience that we're going to give them that's memorable, that they can then recall when they're in the field and talk about that experience.
So let me pause you. And Mariah, can you describe what range of equipment have you used?
Yeah, so we started off with just a very basic, simple camera, and we would move around kind of just a table or desk, and we had a microphone that sat on the table. As it has grown and we've gotten more traction and wanting to do more video, we've invested a bit more in a better camera and some lights, but we did just fine. I mean, even what you saw earlier with Sam, I mean, that was just done in a conference room with a very basic video camera. So we, over time, have decided to invest more in it, but even then I would not say this is a huge capital investment. I mean, it's very, the ability to enter, I would say, is from a small startup company to very large, and I think you will see that across.
So we should have confidence.
Yes. Yeah.
Trying this out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Terrific.
Okay. Questions that we want to go into, or?
We talked about room setup, and so you're going to take us down or take us up, or?
Oh, yes. So then studio, we talked a little bit about that. One way to think about it is you can have mobile studio where everything can fit inside of a Pelican case. Basically, you have 1 to 2 of these cameras and 2 microphones. And that Pelican case could be decently large if you want to get everything in it, about a little bit shorter than the length of this table, but not as wide as the table. Or it could fit in something a little bit larger than the size of a laptop. And the Brandlive production studio kits range from on the low end about $2,000 with everything that you need, and you could spend up to $5,000 or so. And again, all of that would come in a Pelican case so you can make it transportable. Then we have a lot of customers that have built their own little studios and their own environments. Valspar Paint is one of our customers. They're a global company that actually just got acquired by Sherwin-Williams. And they built a green screen. So they have full capabilities of changing the background and even going kind of weatherman style, where they can bring up screens and point to different things. And it really their studio gave them the capabilities to create training content that is much more interactive.
Okay. Our next question is from Diane from Salem, and she's asking, can a live video that was recorded be sent via email? I'm interested in sending a weekly reminder or update on a process or procedure that's also saved and housed and to be accessed as needed.
Yes.
So lightweight versus heavyweight solutions, distribution.
Yes. Yeah, this would be another big difference between doing something as a webinar. You can definitely record webinars, but the vast majority of those tools record as a file, and then you need to find a place to host it. So you could put that on an intranet type of solution, but out of the box, Brandlive is essentially a microsite, as we talked about. And so you would have a recorded page that people can go back to. Mariah mentioned the number of downloads that they're seeing by the people coming back and accessing the same material that they got during the training. That number is higher than they expected. And that's because people remember, hey, during the training of the foot pedal, that's where I got the documentation for this. So anytime they need to go back to it, they just go back to that same location. And it is the same location as you went for the live event. So there's really no confusion from your marketing it the first time to doing the live event to sending the weekly reminders that the content is there. It's all the same link. So you won't have to be doing this over and over and over again. Eventually, you're going to train your audience and get them familiar with going to a similar location to grab their content.
Terrific. So let's transition, maybe talk about why does this work? What makes live video different from recorded content? I mean, we're accustomed to be driven to a recording, but what's the difference with live video?
Yeah, definitely. And in just a second here, I'll have a slide up that Mike, you can switch to. So one of the big differences, just purely from a numbers standpoint, the average view time of recorded video content is about 2 to 3 minutes. Now, one of the reasons for that is when you're producing a recorded video, whoever the director is or whoever the content producer or training manager is, they're having to make the decisions. What do we talk about here? What do we talk about here? And you kind of need to narrow that down. And then once the person watches it, they're watching it in a linear format. When you switch that format to something that is much more changeable and editable and influenced by the audience, we're typically seeing an average view time of 20 minutes. And this data we took from consumer-facing audiences, so we just tried to make it as broad and as generic. This is large audiences, thousands of events, and lots of people. So when we put that in more of a B2B environment, same thing applies. We're seeing obviously longer view times than even 20 minutes, 40, 50 minutes. People are willing to watch live video because they can have an impact on the content. You know, just like Kristen from Washougal, Washington, for example, she asked a question. Within about a minute or so, that question can be open to the panel and discussed directly with the audience. So the level of interactivity is much higher in live video, and therefore people are willing to stick around a lot longer. So let's take Kristen's question.
So she's asking about training on computer applications. And so what's the best practice for using live video training when the majority of the training is on how to use computer applications? Most of the training she delivers are on computer applications for associates to use to complete tasks and transactions in credit union environments.
Well, one of the key things I would talk about is modeling. So using software is not just about click this button, then click that button, then click this button, right? That's how we would traditionally think of software training. In the sort of 2.0 version of software training, I would think more about the environment and the people that actually have to use that. Who are the people that exemplify the best behavior or show the best example, and the actual context and situation why that person would really need to learn that software. Because software can feel cumbersome if you're not re-emphasizing the why, and you put a person in the place to be able to show and demonstrate that. So I would rethink the structure of the training content to make it more situational, tell a little bit of story about who the person is that's using the software, why it's going to be of value to them, then go into the actual software and the demonstration and the click here, click here, click here, and the step-by-step. And then provide that as a follow-up where people can go back and watch that portion of the training to really get the details if they need it.
Great.
Yeah,
You
and-
find-
Yeah, and in addition to the customer service training that I was speaking of earlier about our ordering system, we also just launched a new event planning system where folks want to have an event or bring guests in, where it's very intricate. I mean, we have to have their travel details, where they're staying, all of the information about food restrictions and things. And so they have to get all of that information into the site from the dealer partner. And so the way that we did that to launch it was really, we didn't go through step by step with the software. We used, we talked about why we were changing it, and we used some screenshots from the software to show kind of some pieces, but then went through kind of an activity for them to follow along. So they knew before they were going to participate in the training activity to bring their laptops with them as they're watching the live video, and they can have two screens open.
Yeah.
They can continue to watch, and then they can participate. But first we did it without kind of where you're not clicking through the actual software, showing some very purposeful screenshots of the process so they could see where they were starting and ending. And it was, we've had very little questions after that. So
That makes a lot
yeah.
of sense.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Yeah.
Terrific.
So next, I want to go back to a little bit less of the software example and more products. A-dec makes fantastic products. I have the benefit of a dentist father-in-law. So he, by the way, I won him over the moment that A-dec became a customer. That was lots of brownie points. And so one of the things he always talked about was the innovative design that comes from A-dec. And the foot pedal example is just one of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds over years of A-dec making product, where somebody thought of a unique way to solve the end user's problem. And that process that they went through and the unique solution that they came up with was really the beginning of something that we call the go-to-market paradox, where the product inspiration or the design inspiration for the product that you need to train your audience on is very, very strong with the product team and the design team and early on in the product creation. As you launch that product to your internal teams and to your buyers and to your sales reps and ultimately the person that gets the product at the end, that story gets watered down. It's just like the game of telephone that we played as kids.
Yeah.
If you put too many kids in a line, the story is just going to be different by the time it gets to the end. The problem with that, and as you can see here on our screen, is the purchase influence and the impact of that product's inspiration is most valuable at the end of the process, not the beginning of the process. So how do you bridge that gap between product inspiration and the value that you get as a business of that initial story? And live video is one of, I think, top 1, top 2, top 3 tools that you should look at to help bridge that gap and help be able to tell your product stories better. Training, selling,
Brand advocacy.
buy-in, brand advocacy, marketing, consumer adoption, resell, ownership, all of these key customer touch points. I think live video has a unique ability to solve that challenge, which is different than recorded video. So that's, again, going back to the question, what do I get by doing live video? Because it's going to feel, if you've never done it before, it's going to feel maybe scary. It's going to
Even
feel
when you
like,
do it, it's still
it's going to feel a little bit, uncomfortable, or you may not know how all the equipment works at first, and that's totally normal. But the reality is the market is moving this way. The viewers have already asked, we want content like this. And the value is there, so you're going to get the ROI. You just got to stick with it.
Yeah. Well, and like Fritz mentioned, with the product inspiration, it's very true to be able to sit down and show them, to connect with a story and demonstrate, because, something as simple as, a headrest on a chair. We manufacture dental chairs, and all dental chairs have a headrest. It's not a unique feature. Any chair that you have has one on it. So from a consumer perspective or from a salesperson's perspective, when they're looking at answering a customer's question of what's different or what is, it being able to show our headrest articulates in a different way than anything else on the market, which means that you can change the headrest position so that the dentist is then not compromised all day. They can stay in a perfectly ergonomic position and not have to twist and turn. I mean, think about trying to see inside the mouth all day long, and they really do have a lot of neck and shoulder problems for having to twist and turn. And being able to demonstrate kind of how you position a patient and move and things on live video and have people ask questions and develop their own stories and think about how they interact with the product is much more powerful than just having an online resource or an online guide. Yeah.
So we have another question from Mariah, from Darren, and he's asking, do you need any additional multi-language tools since you're doing global events, or how do you deal with the primacy of English for your workforce?
That's a really good question. So all of our support materials are translated into multiple languages, and we have had speakers who are delivering content in a language. We don't have subtitles or transition to, like, if we're doing a program in English and where we have Spanish and Russian or things available. So we would love to get to that stage someday, but we're not there. So we do have, like I said, different support materials or downloads available in all the different languages, and presenters that speak different languages, but that's the extent of where we're at. We are working on the ability to kind of have a better translation of our materials moving forward. Our territory managers all speak English, so we can communicate with them, and it ends up being a train the trainer for our dealers globally. Yeah.
Interesting. So
I have a little bit of language stuff to add on top of that.
Terrific.
Mike, if you don't mind sharing my screen out. Again, we're just now moving more into this market, or we're seeing more demand from our customers that localization matters a lot, right?
Yes.
And so what I'm sharing out on our screen right now is what's called the Brandlive Courses Home, or Courses landing page. And within that, you have a profile, and you can select your profile language. So if you want the courses to be in English, Spanish, Portuguese, etc. So if I change to Spanish, what you'll see here is, the title of my course, which is Brandlive Culture Education, is still in English, but all of the buttons that I click are now in Portuguese. Switching between different lessons, which lessons this says passed, failed, not taken. So that's a little Portuguese lesson for you there. So it's translating all of the content within the software into your localized language. Then it is a major challenge, of course, to say, now I'm going to create a training course that's actually in Portuguese and write all the description in Portuguese, etc. So.
Terrific. So we have some remaining moments with our panelists here, and so this is a great time to contribute more questions and ask about best practices. I want to start with Mariah and ask you about, what did it take to get leadership support and some buy-in? How did you have to evangelize this or get that first approval that this is the right strategy for you?
Yeah, I think with any program, I mean, it always depends on the culture of the organization that you work within, right? But having at least leadership knowledge and buy-in before we even started down that path was important, right? Because we didn't want it to, it doesn't really matter what you do if you don't have any support from the top to start the project. But we started small, and I think that's a really good indication, because you're not going to go wrong with trying it. There's not a lot of expense to kind of getting up and going, and people will understand once they've participated once what the real difference is. I mean, there's not probably a person now that is in a professional role that's never attended a webinar or never been to face-to-face training. And so if they have an opportunity to try it in your organization, I really say go with the grassroots approach, which is what we did, and it works. I mean, if it's something that's a huge capital expense or you have to have a lot of investment, maybe that's not the right approach. But with this, where you can really start small and gain support as you build, I think it's a really good option.
And your advice?
We have tried to do our best to actually look at these like custom presentations that we've seen our customers put together as sort of a value proposition. So the person, starts to work with Brandlive, they get kind of an idea for how a live video program for them would work. We work with them, one of our sales associates or our customer success manager would work with them to say, what do you think is the real value proposition and ROI use case for your company? And then we'll try to create content that you can use in your deck. So any presentation or any kind of report that you're going to have to build, you're going to want to show other customers and other use cases and examples. And so we've really run with this idea of inspiration guides. So we have a live video inspiration guide that has training, marketing, and use case examples in it. That was the screens I was sharing. We actually created an inspiration guide that's just for internal meetings, kind of CEO town hall type stuff, because we've seen a huge spike in those types of use cases. And so we have an inspiration guide that's just based on that concept. And then we're actually conducting right now an industry benchmark report. And what we've done is we built a survey that's trying to figure out, is your usage of live video increasing or decreasing? Are you getting a dedicated budget to it? Do you expect it to increase or decrease? Are you using Facebook Live? Are you using social live video, or is it internal live video? So once that metric report comes out, we're happy to make that available to the ATD audience. And you can say, look, this is on an industry agnostic basis. Here's what our competitors are doing. This is the trends that they're heading towards. And that usually gets, a little bit of dollars to get to that first buy-in and first use case. And then after that, the program's got to stand up on its own.
That's terrific. Reports like that are one of the ways that we're able to evangelize for new technology.
Great.
Let's take one of the questions we have here for Fritz. What's some of the most creative live training events that you've seen your clients do?
It's a hard one. Let me think about that for a second, because we have so many great ones, and I'm remembering that we have to come back to a winner for our $50 gift card.
Right. We're gonna.
So, do we have? Do you remember a question that really stuck out to you as a creative question? I have one in my mind, but do you have any?
And while we're thinking about that, and I'm going to scroll through those, Joseph from Medford asks, will a recorded version of this presentation be available on the ATD website? Yes, our recording will be available, and we'll figure out a way to push that out to the participants today after the event.
And it's available on this same link. So within about 3 minutes, 5 minutes after this event ends, if you come back to this same page URL or you share it with any of your colleagues, they will see the recorded version of this event.
So let's look.
I know earlier on we had a question, I believe it was from Montreal, about how this really does revolutionize the industry, and with so many products on the market. I know that was one that was definitely got
Melissa in Montreal, right?
Yeah, got our.
I was a fan of that one too. I say we go with Melissa.
Terrific. And
yes.
So let's say congratulations.
Congratulations, Melissa in Montreal. We'll reach out to you. We have your email. That's another aspect of Brandlive is you can have registration turned on, and when the person registers, that then tracks to their profile, which once they ask a question, it all connects back to their email address. So you get lots of metrics and analytics.
Terrific.
Yeah. So one thing I would just say, if you have never participated in live video or you've never really thought about using it in your organization, one way that I started thinking about it, and just thinking about the revolution of Web 1.0 to Web 2.0 and how that has changed the way people engage, just think about your own personal experiences. How long would you stay on a website if you can't ask a question? Or how often after you post something on Facebook do you go back to watch that interaction back and forth? And when we have that personal interaction and we can actually see answers to our questions quickly, we do engage more and we stay on websites longer, whether it's good or bad, right? How much time we spend on social media. But having that ability to interact really does change the way that people interact with us. So really, just start kind of, if you're trying to think, does this really make a difference? Think about your own behaviors and the way that you actually participate with content when you're able to engage right away, or if you have to wait for a response. So that's one way to think about it.
And so that reminds me actually of one of my favorite and most creative training examples. We had a scenario where the training environment was to a large audience that was both disparate and in one location. So the training was happening in one location. They were broadcasting it to viewing parties where there was groups of people in a, not a conference room, but more of an auditorium type of facility. And then there was people that were also remote. And what they wanted to do was connect that experience, people in the room to the people remote. And so they used the mobile-based feature. All the people that were in the auditorium could ask a question on their mobile phone. So you got interaction happening and visibility to the questions from the audience in the auditorium and the questions from the people remote. And the audience was all, they kind of knew each other. They were all part of the same company and sort of the same network. And so you could recognize Darren's name or Melissa's name. And so there started to be a little more of a connection between the audience members that became a shared experience around the training content. And I think that plays very well into, it felt a little bit more like a social experience than it did a traditional training experience.
Yeah.
Excellent. So we reached our time. So I want to say thank you to Mariah for sharing your story and your best practices. Thank you to Fritz for giving us a deeper understanding into the technology and uses that we can do. And I want to say thank you for you to participating, sending us great questions, and participating in this web platform. And so I want to say thank you, and we will see you at our next webcast later on in October. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Yep.